joined from Cairo by the international relations specialist, Dr. Mohamed Osman. Thank you, sir, for joining us here on Q News. Let's start off by asking you here, what does the China-France joint call add to the current diplomacy when it comes to Gaza, and how might it influence possibly US and regional positions towards a lasting peace?
Thank you for having me, Reham. Always a pleasure to be with you. It seems now that there are attempts and efforts on the ground to try to push the implementation of the Gaza ceasefire agreement with all of its stages. We have heard, we have seen the agreement, the implementation being stalled over the past few weeks. We have seen how the Israelis have incessantly violated the ceasefire agreement, how they did not honor many of their obligations, how they are expanding their zones of occupation and killing Palestinians almost on a daily basis. Now over 160 people have already died since the ceasefire went into effect about 2 months ago. And of course, this we can hardly call this an actual ceasefire. But now it seems that regional and international pressures to move on to the second phase are yielding or might be yielding some results. Now we have read reports that President Trump seeks to activate phase 2 or start the implementation of phase 2 within a few weeks. And maybe, just maybe, and this is just my speculation, President Trump's push for acquiring a pardon for Prime Minister Netanyahu on account of his corruption charges might be partially pushed or motivated by his urge to implement or entice the Israelis to implement the second phase of the agreement. Maybe he's telling him, I can help you solve your legal troubles, but in return, you will have to stick to the Gaza plan and move forward with it, something that Israel apparently and clearly is not willing to do at the moment. I do have my sheer skepticism with regards to the possibilities of that. However, of course, we will have to wait and see what transpires in the next couple of weeks.
Well, sir, as you just said there, that the Israelis have violated the ceasefire numerous times and have even hindered it in many ways, including allowing aid into the Gaza Strip. How realistic is the large-scale UN-supervised aid going across all Gaza right now and access to it? How can they guarantee this, given that most of the Strip is still controlled by the Israelis?
Unfortunately, there are no guarantees of anything at this point. We have seen the Israelis go back and forth with their commitments with regards to the entry of aid. Sometimes they allow the needed amount of humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. On other days, they stifle the entry of trucks, sometimes as low as 100 or 200 trucks enter the Strip, even though the agreement stipulates that at least 600 trucks have to enter the Gaza Strip on a daily basis to meet the never-ending humanitarian needs of the population, which has basically been struck by one of the worst man-made, human-made or man-made humanitarian catastrophes in the 21st century. Unfortunately, this is what we are witnessing right now. We are seeing the Israelis use once again the aid as a bargaining chip in order to pressure the Palestinians further. And we have all seen even the latest provocations with regards to these rumors they have put out there with claiming that they will that the Rafah border crossing will be opened from the Palestinian side to allow the Palestinians to only leave. And of course, Egypt vehemently denied that and debunked these Israeli claims. This shows that the Israelis deep inside, they still desire to implement their scheme and their plans for the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians from their land. They are not interested in reconstruction. They are not interested in the withdrawal from the Gaza Strip or a post-war governance of the Gaza Strip that does not include Hamas. They don't really care about that. What they care about is depopulating the Gaza Strip by any means possible.
Well, as you said there, that the Israelis are not interested in basically a peace solution or a two-state solution. Let's move over to the West Bank. There's also been problems there for a very long time, including right now in Qalaqiyya, where the Israeli forces have deployed for a new operation. What impact could this have when it comes to the conditions in the West Bank, and could this affect the ceasefire in general across in Gaza?
we have seen the escalation of military activity by the Israeli occupation in the West Bank since the ceasefire went into effect in Gaza. The Israelis have increased the scale and the pace of their military operations and their provocations and violations in the West Bank. We have seen horrendous videos even of summary execution of civilians, something that is heinous and that was caught on camera, and the Israelis don't even care to deny it, and they do not even care to investigate it properly. The Israelis are enacting also a very, very slow and gradual campaign of land acquisition and displacement in the West Bank. It's not as fast-paced or as bloody and destructive as the one that we have seen in Gaza. However, at the same time, we have seen how they are applying this gradually, how they are actually destroying the refugee camps in the West Bank, for example, and how they are destroying them and causing so much destruction in the West Bank. So unfortunately, we cannot really separate what's going on the West Bank from what's going on in the Gaza Strip. It's all within a fine-tuned Israeli policy of ethnic cleansing and the insurance that there will be no Palestinian state.
Well, since the Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip in 2023, there have been a lot of calls for boycott, including right now with the Eurovision. There has been a call for boycott in several other countries due to the Israeli participation. Do you think that these boycotts, whether it be cultural or related, for instance, to sports or even material economic products, can this somehow soften the political position of the Israelis or maybe make them more extreme?
I don't think, actually, if anything, allowing Israel to participate or not participate in the Eurovision contest, this will not affect Israeli policymakers by any way. They don't really care about that, and the whole the musical festival or musical competition is farcical by all means. It applies no certain unified moral standard that they can adhere to, because Israel is not even a European country, yet it is admitted to the Eurovision, even though there was very stringent opposition from other European countries. And actually countries like the Netherlands and Spain and Ireland have decided not to participate in the Eurovision because Israel was basically allowed to participate despite the war crimes committed by the Israeli government. On the other hand, Russia, which is an actual European country, has been banned from the Eurovision since 2022 when Russia attacked Ukraine, and since then it has been suspended. So this is double standards in full play, in full sway, as we can see. So it doesn't surprise me that the European public is angry about how this is working out. However, at the same time, whether really Israel participates in the Eurovision or not, this will not affect in any way the policy making or the decision making drivers of Israel's leaders.
Okay, since we're talking about leaders here, let's talk about the Prime Minister, Netanyahu. He called the corruption charges against him, quote, idiotic. How does this domestic legal battle between, the top of the government, Netanyahu, with the courts affect the Israeli maneuvers when it comes to Gaza and the West Bank? Because we've seen in the past that he's used, the Gaza war as a way to prolong these charges.
Well, how Netanyahu comments on his corruption charges just shows how little respect this man actually shows to the rule of law in his own country. He is basically a corrupt leader who has maintained power through manipulation and through conniving politicking between different political actors in the Israeli political spectrum. And also, the latest manifestation of that was basically forming this coalition or alliance with the ultra-far right to form one of the worst governments in Israeli history that is now overseeing this genocide in Gaza and multiple Israeli war of aggressions all around the region. So we are seeing how this man is trying to prolong his political livelihood and to prevent his eventual accountability or legal accountability by trying to prolong conflicts in the region. This is one way to partially analyze what's going on, but we cannot basically single or stream it just down to that. We cannot really single that out and say that this is the only reason Israel is doing what it's doing now, because that's not true. What's happening right now is the desire of the state of Israel, of the political elite of Israel, of the military and security elite of the Israeli state. They do believe that it is time for them, that the 7th of October has created the condition for them to realize this project of a greater Israel, to realize their dream of completely liquidating the Palestinian cause. So what Netanyahu is doing, he is basically implementing what the vast majority of the Israelis really want him to do. He is, of course, taking advantage of that in order to evade legal accountability. And that explains why Trump, for example, has entered into the scene and actually implored the Israeli President Herzog in the middle of the Knesset in October that he should pardon Netanyahu. And now we have seen Netanyahu actually submit that pardon request. And now it is being examined by the relevant authorities in Israel. So it seems that the Americans are pressing for that, and it seems that probably it might happen in the near future, which will always be good news for Netanyahu, because now his improving, his numbers are improving in the polls once again, and he is preparing for an election next year that he intends to it.
Okay, thank you so much. From Cairo, that was the International Relations Specialist, Dr. Mohamed Osman. Thank you for joining us here on Q News.